Arts and Culture Manager Christine Fay was part of a team in the early 90s that worked to save the now 100-year-old McKinley Park School. At the time, the city was using the historic school, bought from the Washoe County School District in 1975, as a recreation center. There was discussion of demolishing it and selling the property to raise funds for a new rec center on Plymouth Street.
Back in the early 1990s, we were able to get some money to do a structural analysis from the Commission for Cultural Affairs, which is a wonderful organization as a part of the state of Nevada. And by doing the structural analysis, we realized that what we really had was 4 courses of bricks standing on sand. And so we had to do something about the building.
The fear of losing the building also spurred the start of the city's Historic Resources Commission. Christine secured a grant from the Commission for Cultural Affairs for $1.5 million. The city provided the other funding to complete the $3 million rehabilitation project.
For $2.5 million, we got a building that cost us less than the cost of new construction to put just a tilt-up concrete structure. And we were able to save this beautiful building that graces the Truckee River right in the Arts and Culture District that helps us anchor the westernmost portion of that. So I think it was a win-win for our community.
Today, the building is the city's Arts and Culture Center and houses 9 nonprofit arts organizations, other programs like this acting class, and 2 art galleries. The McKinley Park School was built in 1909 and opened to students in 1910 in what was called the Pounding District. Named after President William McKinley, the school was one of 4 Reno schools known as the Spanish Quartet, single-story mission revival-style schools built around the turn of the 20th century. The city kept with the original design.
Some of the things that we were able to do is it used to have a, as most mission buildings do, a tile roof, a red tile roof. What we were able to do is we were able to bring in a new modern roof, which is made of an aluminum kind of a product, a metal product, but it looks like a tile roof from a distance, but it's much more energy efficient, much easier to maintain. We were able to, during the time before it was rehabilitated, we had lost some of the soffits and some of the parapets and things that are around the building because structurally they just couldn't hold up anymore. All of that was able to be replaced during the rehabilitation. And Raymond Brothers actually was able to remove the beautiful tile work that had been on the original building, keep it safe, and then they were able to reinstall it on this building. And someone asked me one time, why did you put McKinley Park School back up? And I said, because that's what it is. That's its historic provenance, so to speak, is it was the McKinley Park School. So we don't ever want to forget that. But that beautiful tile work was able to be kept and replaced. The wood floors over time, they had put down linoleum and they had put down rugs and carpet and all that sort of thing. As during the reconstruction and the rehabilitation, they pulled all that stuff up. They found these beautiful original maple floors. They were able to redo those. They were able to scavenge some of flooring from an upper small room that they had that we couldn't keep because of ADA, and they were able to take that and patch some areas, so people always come in on our beautiful floors. The other thing we were able to do was we didn't gut the interior of the building. So when people come in, they're able to see how the classroom shaped, what it was like, and they're able to see the 2 doors that go to a little storage area at the back, and they can actually see the little cubbies that the kids used to put their lunch boxes and pails into, and where they used to hang up their coats. So that's the kind of thing that adds so much, I think, to this building.
In September, the city held a 100th birthday party at the center. A number of former students and others attended the celebration to reminisce.
In the 6th grade, I put the flag up on the flagpole every morning. It was above the toppest section of the school. I had to go up through the kindergarten room, through the attic, and through a trap door to get to the roof.
We played those old-fashioned games, crack the whip, jacks, jump rope. You know, now that the kids would think would just be obsolete because they have their iPods, and so I think we had the best of life really back then. It was simple life.
in second grade, one of the nicest things that I remember was that my teacher, whose name was Viola Jones Templeton, she got married when I had her, played the piano. And so nearly every day our class would dismiss into the auditorium, and she would play the piano, and Miss Elcano, second grade, would join us, and the two groups would sing for an hour nearly every single day. And we learned, you can't imagine, we learned all the Army hymn, Navy hymn, the Marine Corps hymn. We learned the popular songs of the day. We learned Christmas carols. We learned just about anything those two ladies could think of for us to sing. And I think we were pretty good, and I love singing. So that just made me really happy. And so that was a great thing about second grade, even though I enjoyed being a student. And I can also remember when I was in the second grade, I had the mumps, and I knew I had the mumps. But I liked school so much, I didn't tell my parents I had the mumps. So I came to school, and one morning I woke up, and I also apparently had contracted impetigo somehow, and that did it. I was too sick to continue. So I told them I thought I was sick, and when I got back to school, nearly half the class was gone with the mumps because I had graciously handed it out to everybody and never told my parents that I was sick.
I went to my elementary school years here, and this was my fourth grade class with Miss Nelson. One of the things I remember specifically was when we were learning the multiplication tables, Miss Nelson put hopscotch patterns out here on the patio of the 2x2, 3x, the 4s, whatever, and you had to go through all those successfully, and it's a great way to learn your alphabet. It was active, got to do that, and we had an unfortunate positioning here of directly across from the principal's office, and it just seemed that whenever I was in the hall, the principal also would come out and began to know me by name. It was bad, but it was a smaller town. You knew everybody who was here, and this was a great school. Marbles out there in the back, your swing sets. You couldn't get on the lawn except when we did our dance festival. Then you could get on the lawn, but it was a pretty setting, nice small school.
I loved those dances. We would start to practice for them fairly early in the spring, and each class would learn a folk dance, and they were all different. And then I think we had a great big huge one where everybody danced, but we danced in circles by our classes. And I loved it. And because I was a pretty good student, I would sometimes be allowed to be dismissed from my class and go help another class learn their dances, which was fine with me. So I learned a lot of dances that way.
I was principal here from 1959 to 1964. And during that time, of course, I learned how to be a principal because I was 30 years old, and they were appointing principals like crazy at that time. Just before me was a fellow named Ted Fershner, which is an old Reno family. So I learned some from Ted, but when I got here, every teacher in this building was over 60 years old. And so for 5 years, I had 5 retirements in a row because teachers had to retire at 65 in those days. And a number of the teachers in their early years were not allowed to be married. So, because I had teachers who, of course, were born before 1900 or thereabouts.
And I can remember walking home every day from this school. We lived in Westville Village, which is next door to, is the area next door to Reno High School. And in my first grade year when I walked home, and it was about a mile, and people used to let their kids do that. And it was just fine. I mean, my mother told me that's how it was, and it was how it was. But during the first year that I was walking home, Reno High was being built, and I can remember just this little girl walking down in the pipe rooms down below, and none of the construction workers asked me to leave. I always remembered that I I have always remembered that I couldn't figure out why I didn't get thrown out, but they just let me walk through, and then I'd walk home. And
the only other school in the Spanish Quartet to survive the wrecking ball is Mount Rose Elementary School. Parents and members of the community raised funds to bring it up to earthquake standards as well.
You know, I don't think we can save every single building there is, but we need to save buildings that tell our story. And this is one of the buildings that tells our story. And I think that that is so very critical in a community, is to have that sense of history and to be able to tell that story through your built environment. And that's something that McKinley does. It's just such a magical place to be, I think. It's very calming. Because of all of the natural materials that it was made out of, it has such a wonderful presence. And honestly, the first time I saw the building, without any question, I said, we've got to save this building. There's no question about that. And so then they said, well, that'll cost money. And I said, okay, fine, then we'll go get it.
The 100 years of memories behind it, this building still stands as a place where residents can create life stories with work, classes, and special occasions, including weddings, at this wonderful city location.